objectives. So, over this dot manipulation breakout, we're going to learn the difference between dot append and inner text equals, because I know we had a lot of issues with that. We're going to create and append elements into the DOM. You don't append it into your index.html page because your index.html page and your JavaScript come together to make the DOM. That's why it's DOM manipulation. You're able to navigate events using event listeners, and you're able to change classes dynamically using event listeners. So change the classes of elements using event listeners. So first things first, I slacked out a GitHub repo that I want you all to fork and clone, and that's what we'll be working with. It'll look something like this. Fork and clone it if you follow my directions, right?
Get the fork out of here.
Oh, and this presentation is brought to you by cold calling, so everybody will be cold called on. So let me know once you... We'll see a show of hands once you guys have it done and you're open into the README. Okay. Cool. Question, are you done? Done? So we'll give it just a few more minutes while everybody gets ready. If you do have it download, go ahead and open your index.html page in Chrome. So you'll have a page that looks like this. Whoa. Can everyone read that? Or bigger? That good?
That's good.
Don't worry, we're going to make this all grammatically correct through adding more things to that one item list. My favorite animals are dogs. So is everybody there? Their index.html page is open. Show of hands if you're all there. You have your index.html page open to Chrome. Cool. Okay, so first things first. We're going to stretch for 10 seconds really quick. Everybody take a mental break. 10 seconds of stretching. Ooh, feels so good. Okay. We're going to do kind of a breathe in, breathe out method. So I'll do a little bit of coding, and then I want you guys to do a little bit of coding. And I want to be very interactive because I think a lot of this is stuff you guys know at least a little bit about. So first thing, we're going to go over the difference between .append and .inner text in HTML. So we're going to use document.createElement to create a few different paragraph tags. Then we're going to use .inner text or inner HTML to put your favorite animals in the p tags you just created. Then we're going to append those into a div in our index. So that is in your guys' README. So I want everybody to open up their app.js folder or file. And you should say, hey, this stuff actually works. So you'll know if you're in the right one. Go for it. I would love for you to test it. Is it connected properly?
It is. Good job.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you. You know. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is use document.createElement to create a few p tags. So one thing I want to touch on is every time you use document.createElement, it creates that element one time, which means if you're going to use a loop, you need to have that create element in your loop, so it creates it every time the loop runs. They're only good for one use once they're mentioned. So if you want to create multiple of them, we have to say we'll use p-tag equal document.create element p. Then
Why did you call it bar p-tag as opposed to let?
ES6 stuff.
yeah, let is just an EX6 term. It's the same thing basically.
Just run with it. Go with it.
So you're saying that it's only going to be used once as long as it's within that function, or as long as it's within the global scope?
Global scope. So I cannot, like, each time I reference the document.create element, it's going to create one p tag, right? So if I have it in a loop, like let's say I have this outside and I put a for loop down here, and I have things going into the p tag I made down here in the for loop, it will only be able to use, pause. The first time this loops, it will use a p tag, but every other time there will be no p tag for it to use. So if I was going to create a loop, I have to do the document.create element inside my loop, inside my for loop, otherwise it will not work. Which we'll get some practice with. Okay, so here we're going to use .innerText or innerHTML to put your favorite animals in each p tag. So we're going to say p tag.innerText equals, because what this is saying is take whatever p tag.innerText is, so if there was inner text already in our p tag, it would take that, erase it, and replace it with whatever is on the other side of the equal sign. That's the biggest difference between .append and inner text equals.
Can you say it again?
Yeah, so inner text equals will replace whatever the inner text is with whatever's on the other side of the equals sign. So whenever you're using anything equals sign is the erase and replace version of .append. So if you .append something, it will take whatever's existing and add whatever you have in the append parentheses after it. The equal sign will replace whatever was there with whatever you put after the equal sign. Does that make sense? Cool. So, who can give me a name of an animal? We have dogs up there.
Zebra.
Chicken.
I heard zebra. So do zebra, and they'll do p tag 2.innerText. Cole, why am I doing p tag and p tag 2? Why are there two of them?
Why are there two of them?
Yeah.
They only do the one.
Because we're going to add a different animal into the second one.
Yep. That's exactly correct.
So
And
that's
they're
an
only good for one use. Yep. Okay, so what's another? We have,
Lemming.
what?
Lemming.
Lemming? Is that how you spell it?
Two rooms.
Like that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now we have created p tags. Let's go over to here. We've created our p tags. We've used inner text. And now we need to append our p tags into, it's actually the DOM, but into our HTML.
Question.
Yes.
You wrote use intertext or HTML. Is there a difference?
So there is a difference between inner text and inner HTML, but that's only if you're referencing, like let's say you have a bunch of p tags in a div. You select that div and do inner HTML. It will select all the HTML in that div. All those p tags, from what I understand. If you do inner text, it will just look for the inner text that's going to be in between those, two little text brackets, when it's the opening and closing tag, you have text in between it. That's the main difference. So inner HTML will actually include HTML if there is an HTML in there, and inner text is just the text. Yes?
So the reading I suggest is that error HTML is a dangerous tool to use because it's security issues. If you get into the HTML and screw with the site, so be very careful if you're going to use that one.
Also, that's excellent. For those of you who didn't hear, Calvin said that using inner HTML can cause security issues. Also, I think inner text is a lot more explicit with what you're doing, so it makes it much more readable. If you see inner HTML, you can put it together, but inner text saying, hey, we're changing the text of this p tag, right? We're doing this. Makes it a lot easier to read. Okay, So does anyone know? Oh, I guess I'm cold calling. Josh, what do you think I need to do before I can append these items? Where are we appending them?
To the dump.
Yep.
Body.
And
So you need a listener. So
not a listener, but let's pick a spot in our index.html where I want to put these. I made a div in here with the class info.
So
Does
you're
that-
gonna get an element
Get elements by
name.
class name. So we're going to do we'll say section equal document dot get elements by class name, and I called it info. We're taking another 10 seconds of a break. Oh, this is so hard. See, I can't skip it because I'm a workaholic, and if I have a skip button, I'll never take breaks.
You took it off. That's a way to disable it.
Yeah, there's a way to disable all the buttons so it doesn't make you take a break. All right, what goes on the end of this?
So
A settle, because get elements by class name will return an array because there are multiple different elements can have the same class name. The reason it's get element by ID and you don't need the bracket 0 afterwards is because there's only one. So then we're going to section.append p tag and p tag 2. We're going to swipe one over to here. Look at that.
go back. Go back.
Boop.
It works!
Yay! Okay, so next we're going to touch into loops because loops are super, super duper fun. So for the loop section, we're going to use document.createElement. And Paul, where do we put this document.createElement if we're going to make a loop?
Well, I would think. It's my turn. If you're going to do a loop to the append,
If here's my loop,
right. Put all your favorite animals in there.
if we're going to create, since we're going to create a p tag to put all our favorite animals in. If I want to create, just like we did above, but in a loop,
Right.
where do I put the document.createElement? Do I leave it up there?
I think you need to keep one up there,
Okay.
but I'm feeling, based on your response, that it probably has to be inside the loop.
Can you tell me why you're feeling it needs to be inside of the loop?
Because you're nervously biting your necklace. And tells me you're a terrible poker player, number one. Number two, it needs to be in there because it only needs to happen once, right? No, wait. No. The reason why you want to put it in there, well, it does only happen once when it's an append. So they keep putting it in there. You don't want to do that, right?
You're getting too far ahead of it. So just the document.createElement, if I want it to happen multiple times, create multiple elements, does it need to be in or out of my loop? The actual command document.createElement, does it need to be out of my loop or in it?
It's going to create multiple of them, it's got to be in the loop.
Yes, exactly. Because every time we reference the document.createElement, it creates one element. So it needs to be in a loop if we want to make multiple. Perfect. So we're gonna take 5 minutes. We're gonna take 5 minutes on this, and I'm gonna have somebody come up and show their code. So take 5 minutes, work on this loop, exercise number 2, which is in your README, and at the end of 5 minutes, I'll have somebody up and show me their code. Cool? Do, 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 do. Oh, let me pull up the instructions on the README. They're on the README, but I should probably just leave those up on screen. This right here, exercise number 2.
Oh, okay.
These.
Okay.
And don't look at this section of code because it will not help you.
Yeah, I was looking at
Where are we creating the array?
The array will be something you create manually. You create an array when you type in strings or your favorite animals. Oh, you know what? I want to change this up on you guys really quick because we didn't go over this specific part. That's my fault. Let's do create one p tag per favorite animal and append them in a loop. So do what we just did, but in a loop.
That makes more sense. Create an array be the first thing.
So this one you won't need, well, yeah. Sorry guys, changed on the fly on me. Hopefully that'll be easier. The code will look very similar to what we just did. It'll just be a loop.
So I'm creating an array.
This is good.
Created element error. Yeah.
So you would want, how would you, get each of this using the next document create, or how would you, if you hit the console log, so this is what you use, but big animals, eyes, and
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. We're not creating ones of this.
Yeah, right.
so like whatever you
I heard most of them.
runs through there.
Yeah, he's going
It takes us to find it.
so.
Yeah, you can finish. I use it. I use it to grow key tag for you. Sorry, yeah. Search DOM. So are you, you're not putting it there. You said append it into key tag, not append that.
Oh, because I need the, yeah, so section.
Yeah.
So I just, there's one more step, right? Yeah. Section dot.
Append that paragraph.
There we go.
Wait, on what?
That you guarantee.
Oh, you might want to change this.
URL.
No, not array.
That's what I had it as.
Strings.
It's probably just some type of.
So it's created an array. And from there, I needed to extrapolate.
How do you say key tag?
No, I don't understand how this is an array.
Wait, mine just.
Croy. Okay.
Like guys in the same age. Two people who are like
First class.
that don't speak up when
Well,
you
he's
You know what's best for you is go pretty much.
Then append that key tag into it. You check the timer. Everybody together?
All right. 5 minutes are up. Does anybody have a working version they feel comfortable showing us? Yeah?
Yeah.
All right, head up here. Let's see it. So we're back up. So let's go to Adam. Exercise 3. We're going to create an event listener that listens for a click on our button. When the button is clicked, we're going to have the class name change from blue to black. And blue to black, I should probably put dots before these because these are actually classes that I made in our CSS. So if we look in our CSS, we'll see black and blue and the differences in those. So I know that a lot of us in the last, what do we call those? The thing we just did on Friday. The scrimmage. The last scrimmage we did, I know this was a big thing we ran into, so I really wanted to touch on it so you guys can see how the interface looks. So, first things first, what we're going to do inside of our JavaScript is we're going to add an event listener. Now, what are we listening for and where are we listening for it? I'll take a hand for this one.
Click.
Yes.
You're listening for the click on the button.
Yes.
Or on click, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
On try on the button.
So, first what we have to do, this is our button. So first things first, we have to refer to our button, right? We have to get something that's going to point to it. We did it up here. So we're going to let button equal document dot get elements by class name. And the class has two classes. One is button, one is blue. So if we go back, to our yeah. So this is how you can add multiple classes to things. So a little tiny CSS tip. If you want to do universal things like I do background coloring, or if you want to do like text center, or if you're doing a lot of flexbox stuff and you want to add a specific flexbox thing, you can just create, so this is button does one thing, and blue does a completely separate thing. So if I want anything else to look the same as my button, I can just space, give the class blue, and it'll look the exact same as my button as far as whatever parameters blue has.
Question.
Yes.
Do you do the same thing with IDs?
No. So IDs, the difference between
Separate IDs.
no. So the difference between an ID and a class, and a great question. Great question. So the difference between an ID and a class is an ID is only used once. There's only one ID. A class is classification. You can have multiple things in your class.
I
Yes.
think what he was saying is, can something have multiple IDs?
Yeah, but there'd be no reason for it because an ID can only be used once. So
Well, you'd have like one element and it would be like ID blue and ID black.
yeah, but you can only use the IDs are only good for one use. So you could have multiple IDs, but you can only use them one time. So if you want, you could, but you can only use it once. So it'd be longhand. If you can do ID blue and code whatever you want blue to be because it's only going to be used that one time. If you do classes, that's what's important to be very semantic with your class names. So when you refer to it later, you understand what's going on. But no, there's no advantage to using ID because you can only use it for one element. So, and that's why if you do document.getElement by ID, see how it's singular, and that will return one item. GetElements by class name returns an array. So if we want to just do something for, like if we want to iterate over all of the things in that class with this class name, we do a for loop that is button.length, and button I would return to us every single instance that button was used on an element. That's a little side tangent. So we want the first one specifically for this, and we're going to do button.addEventListener. We're listening for a click, and this is where we add for our listen. So if it's like mouse over, mouse up, mouse down, that's where this is going to go, and you can find those all on MDN. Then we're creating a function. I always give mine the parameters of event. Michelle, do you know if that's just best practice or if you need it?
That is a very specific thing, yes.
Okay, so you'll have, and fatty arrow just means it's a function, and this is its placeholder. So event, and every time I do an event listener, I log the event before I do anything else with it. So what we're going to write is console log event. So on our button, which we refer to up here, we're adding an event listener, listening for a click, and when the click happens, we're just logging what the computer sees so that we know what we're dealing with. So if we go over to here, we'll refresh my page. When I click on change the color, which is our button, see down here, I'm about to zoom in on this, so don't worry. I'll make it huge because we're going to spend a little bit of time. So see this mouse event? Can everyone see this? Does it need to be bigger? Good? Okay. So in here, and let's not get, this is going to get a little bit intense because there's a lot of stuff that the computer tracks for us. Most of the time, you're going to be in event.target, which this is an object, so we're using object notation, object.notation. So event.target is going to be all the way down here. So you have path. Path will show us all sorts of fun stuff. But right now we're messing with target. So the target will tell us where we clicked. This is useful. We use this for our scrimmage, or I use this for our scrimmage. If you select all the boxes, like if you have a div that contains all those boxes, and you have an event listener in that entire div, listening for a click, the event.target will be the exact square that it clicked on, the exact element it clicked on. So the target is where it was clicked. So we're going to be in target, event.target. I know, it's getting a little crazy. And this gives us a class list. So one nifty little thing you guys can do if you're inside your Chrome DevTools is open this little guy up. And I know you can't see it, but if you two-finger click or right-click, whichever, and there's a little option saying copy property path. So we can copy the property path. We go back to here. I use that all the time. That is just my favorite thing. and it will be the dot notation for how to get to where we just were. So event.target.classList is where we found in that event what the list of classes were. And the reason we're doing that is because we want to take that class list and change something in there so that it'll actually change the class. There's class list, and there's also, I think just if there's multiple classes, it always is a class list. Michelle, do you know?
Oh, I'm sorry.
If there are multiple classes, it'll just be class list, right? Not just class. I think so.
No idea.
If you only have one class, it will just be class. If you have multiple classes, it will be class list. So, if we save this, event.target.classList, event being what happened when it clicked, target being where we clicked or which element we clicked on, and .classList being the list of classes of that clicked element. So now we're just going to log that. So go back to my page, refresh it, click change the color. Look at that, we got our class list back, right? That's kind of cool. So, oh yeah, we can open it up and set. Yeah, so if we go over to here and do 0, meaning that's the, well, we want to change blue, right? That's what we want to have changed. So we're going to select the index 1 of the class list. We'll refresh the page so we see what we're logging. Change the color, blue. Right? So does everyone see? Let's see a show of hands if you followed me with how we got to the blue.
Say it again?
Cool. How we got the return of just the string blue. Okay, so let's take 2 minutes. I'm going to have you guys see if you can figure out using, I'll leave this code up here. So I want this code to change it from blue to black. Okay? Yeah? Paul, did you say you know how to do it? All right, I'll give you guys 2 minutes. Give you guys 2 minutes to do it. And at the end of those 2 minutes, someone else is going to show up and be up here and show their code. Boop. And here's the code I promised I say up here.
We're switching from blue to black.
Yep. Blue is the class it already has. Black is the class that we want to change it to.
That's in
With that, what do you see? So, it's a class. It's not a two button outside of that. You know what I mean? It's like a hard close, you can switch out the class when it's clicked. And that way it takes 80 lines of what we had. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, if you go basically you're saying using crowded HTML or crowded JavaScript versus just having CSS and changing the style. It's a lot instead of it'll say like if we're only changing one thing, if you're only changing the style, it's a lot of typing here, if we're doing it, if you're doing the whole style, like for example, we're using some Java Center or dot, and this is just how dynamically changing using JavaScript. So then these are all the things that well, you know, rewrite it. Yeah, and means and I'm saying how much like, but you use this if you follow the launcher design. Just change the classes and all that versus and then you don't type it all out one again versus That's just what I can.
Yeah, and this works. This is the way to do it dynamically.
Yeah.
And save you some work.
I lied, I didn't know how to do it.
It's okay, we're gonna go over it together. What is it?
Yeah. But it didn't.
I just figured if I said it this way. No, I'm sure. Let's work through it together and figure it out.
I think it's been 2 minutes. Okay. Does anyone get it to work? You got it to work?
Yeah.
You want to come up and show us your code?
Let me see your code. Your code, 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 code.